Mr. Marcus Cole's vision blurred as his knees hit the coffee shop floor. 43 seconds earlier, he'd been laughing with his crew about teaching the quiet barista some respect. Now his wrist throbbed from a submission hold he'd only seen in military training videos. And the woman standing over him wasn't trembling anymore. Her left hand, the one with those strange parallel scars running from wrist to elbow, hung steady at her side. No shaking, no fear, just the cold mechanical precision of someone who'd done this before. How? Marcus gasped, tasting copper in his mouth. Ms. Allison Vance glanced at the wall clock with the same methodical attention she gave everything else. 43 seconds. I really am getting slow. But to understand how 5 armed bikers ended up unconscious in Elmwood Coffee House, we need to go back to where this story really began. Not with the fight, but with the scars. Not with the violence, but with the silence that preceded it. Before we dive into Allie's incredible story, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone who seemed completely ordinary but turned out to be extraordinary? Drop a comment below and share your experience with us. Stories like these remind us that heroes walk among us every single day, often completely unrecognized. If this story touches your heart and you'd like to help us bring more inspiring tales to people who need to hear them, consider hitting the thanks button below this video. Your support helps us research and share these powerful human stories that deserve to be told. Now, let's discover who Allison Vance really was and why 5 men were about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. Elmwood Coffee House sits exactly 3 blocks from a national veterans cemetery, close enough that the morning mist carries whispers of honor and sacrifice through its windows. Every morning at precisely 5:47 a.m., Allison Vance unlocks the front door and begins her routine with the methodical precision of someone whose life depends on getting details right. She measures coffee grounds like a laboratory technician. 23 grams per cup, never 22, never 24. Her movements flow with an efficiency that customers mistake for simple practice, not recognizing the tactical awareness that keeps her positioned where she can see all entrances. She never sits with her back to a door. She never stands in front of windows during peak lighting hours. She counts exits the way other people count change. The regulars think they know her story. Poor thing, they whisper between sips of their perfectly measured coffee. Probably military discharge, maybe medical reasons. You can tell she's damaged goods. Look how she flinches at loud noises. How she always wears long sleeves to hide whatever scars she's carrying. They speak about her with the kind of condescending pity reserved for broken things that still function, but will never be quite right again. What they don't notice is how she processes every person who enters like a threat assessment. How her eyes catalog potential weapons, exit routes, defensive positions before most people finish deciding what to order. They see a quiet woman in faded jeans and a plain gray sweater, blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. They don't see the way she positions cleaning supplies within arm's reach, or how she's memorized the weight and balance of every object behind the counter. Mr. Walter Thornton knows better. At 72, the combat veteran occupies his corner booth like a sentry post, nursing black coffee and watching the world through eyes that have seen too much. His weathered hands shake when he reaches for his cup, not from age, but from recognition. There's something about the way Allie moves that triggers his own muscle memory. Something in her hypervigilance that speaks to experiences civilians couldn't understand. The morning crowd flows through Elmwood Coffee House with predictable patterns that Allie has mapped and memorized. Construction workers claim the tables near the front entrance, their conversations about weekend plans and job sites creating a wall of masculine noise that fills the space. They joke about overtime pay and complain about government contracts, never noticing how Allie's posture shifts when they discuss military construction projects. Behind them, the business professionals maintain their separate territory, designer coffee drinks matching designer attitudes as they conduct phone calls that sound important but accomplish little. Ms. Margaret Richardson, the mayor's wife, sweeps in at exactly 8:15 every morning, demanding her usual extra foam latte with precisely 2 pumps of vanilla. Her voice carries that particular tone reserved for people who serve her. Not quite rude enough to cause a scene, but dismissive enough to establish hierarchy. What none of them see are the small details that would tell a different story if they bothered to look. The way Allie's hands move with surgical precision when she's nervous, fingers automatically finding pressure points on her wrist. The faded outline of what might be a tattoo partially hidden under her sleeve. Wings or anchors, too blurred by time and deliberate concealment to make out clearly. The small ritual she performs every morning at exactly 9:23, touching something behind the coffee machine with the reverence people reserve for memorial visits. Allie learned early in her 18 months at Elmwood Coffee House that invisibility was a survival skill. The less people noticed her, the less they expected from her, the safer she remained. She'd perfected the art of being present, but unremarkable, helpful, but forgettable. It was a necessary evolution from someone who'd once moved through hostile territory like smoke, appearing where impossible and vanishing when cornered. The scars on her left wrist tell a story she's never shared with anyone in Elmwood. 3 parallel lines running from wrist to elbow, precise and purposeful in their spacing. When customers notice them, which happens rarely, they assume self-harm or domestic violence, creating their own narratives of feminine weakness and emotional instability. The truth is far more complex and infinitely more dangerous. Those scars came from shrapnel in Syria, metal fragments from an IED that should have killed her, but instead marked her as a survivor. They represent 72 hours of captivity, of watching teammates die while she planned an escape that seemed impossible. They're proof of a life most people couldn't imagine, and a strength most people couldn't comprehend. But strength, Allie has learned, makes people uncomfortable when it comes wrapped in the wrong package. A quiet woman serving coffee isn't supposed to carry the weight of classified operations or the ghosts of 11 fallen teammates. Society prefers its heroes in recognizable uniforms, its warriors clearly labeled and safely contained within expected narratives. The coffee machine's rhythmic hissing provides a soundtrack to her thoughts as she prepares for another day of performance art, playing the role of someone who fits, someone ordinary, someone who won't ask questions or draw attention. Her gear had included military-grade smartwatches with satellite GPS tracking and encrypted communication capabilities. Originally designed for special operations, but now available for professional security personnel. Technology that had saved her life more than once in hostile territory. Now her wrist carries nothing more threatening than a simple Timex with a worn leather band. The morning rush builds to its usual crescendo around 8:30, voices blending into white noise that Allie filters through training she's never been able to shut off. Threat assessment becomes automatic. Voice stress analysis, body language interpretation, scanning for concealed weapons or aggressive postures. It's exhausting maintaining this level of awareness while appearing completely normal. But relaxation is a luxury she can't afford. That's when she first hears them. The distant rumble grows slowly, building from background noise into something that makes her entire body tense with recognition. Motorcycle engines, multiple bikes moving in formation. Her hands still briefly on the espresso machine as muscle memory floods back. Convoy movement, tactical approach, the sound of vehicles carrying people who meant business. Through the window, she watches 5 Harley-Davidsons pull into the parking lot with deliberate intimidation. Chrome gleams in the morning sunlight. Leather-clad figures dismounting with the practiced swagger of people accustomed to getting their way through fear. They survey the coffee shop like hunters evaluating prey, pointing through the window with gestures that speak of planned intimidation. Walter Thornton shifts in his corner booth, his old soldier instincts recognizing threat assessment when he sees it. The construction crew perks up with the excitement of potential entertainment while Margaret Richardson clutches her designer purse tighter and moves toward what she considers a safer position near the back wall. Allie continues wiping the same spot on the counter, her movements unchanged, but her weight has shifted to the balls of her feet. Every exit route is already mapped, every potential weapon cataloged, every defensive position evaluated. The muscle memory of someone who has survived ambushes is taking over, preparing for possibilities that civilians couldn't imagine. The lead biker approaches the window first, pressing his face against the glass to study her with predatory interest. Marcus Cole stands 6 feet 2 inches in his leather vest, patches positioned where everyone can see them. His graying beard frames a face that's learned to enjoy intimidation, and his eyes hold the cold calculation of someone who's found an easy target. He says something to his crew that makes them laugh. Harsh, anticipatory sounds that penetrate the coffee shop's walls. They know exactly what they're looking for. Someone weak to push around. Someone who won't fight back. Someone to make them feel powerful on a slow Thursday morning when they need entertainment. The door chimes as they enter, bringing the smell of motor oil and leather and trouble. Silence falls over Elmwood Coffee House like a funeral shroud. Every conversation stops mid-sentence as customers realize they're about to witness something unpleasant. The masculine energy that had filled the room moments before suddenly feels fragile and uncertain. Marcus swaggers to the counter with his crew spreading out behind him in a formation that speaks of practiced intimidation. Mr. James Morrison, 300 pounds of sleeveless muscle, positions himself near the door like a bouncer blocking exits. Mr. Saul Rodriguez, whose tattooed arms tell stories of violence, both real and imagined, takes the left flank with the casual menace of someone comfortable with conflict. The twins, Mr. Kyle and Mr. Charles Peterson, complete the formation with the synchronized movement of people who've worked together their entire lives. They don't need to communicate their intentions. Every member knows their role in what's coming. Allie finally looks up from her cleaning, meeting Marcus's gaze with eyes that hold too much history. What he sees there should have been his first warning. Not fear or submission, but the calm assessment of someone calculating angles and distances. But bullies rarely read warning signs, too drunk on their own perceived power to recognize real danger when it stands quietly before them. Well, Marcus drawls, his voice pitched to carry through the entire coffee shop. What do we have here? Little Barbie playing coffee shop owner. His crew erupts in rehearsed laughter designed to humiliate as much as amuse. James leans forward with theatrical concern. Bet she faints if we order something more complicated than water. Saul adds his own contribution with the timing of a seasoned performer. Probably cries when customers don't tip enough. Allie continues cleaning the same spot on the counter, her voice steady and professional when she responds, "What can I get for you?" The neutrality in her tone seems to frustrate Marcus, who had expected fear or anger, something to feed off, something to escalate. Instead, he faces the kind of composure that suggests either complete naivety or complete confidence. His instincts whisper warnings about the latter, but his audience expects a show. 5 black coffees, he says, leaning closer and invading her personal space with practiced intimidation. Think your pretty little hands can handle that without breaking a nail? The construction crew snickers from their table, enjoying the entertainment while maintaining the comfortable distance of spectators. Margaret Richardson whispers disapprovingly to her companion, but makes no move to intervene. Walter Thornton's knuckles whiten around his coffee cup as he recognizes bullying tactics from his own military experience. Allie methodically prepares 5 cups, measures coffee grounds with laboratory precision, starts the brewing process. Her hands remain steady despite the escalating verbal assault, her face showing neither fear nor anger. The crowd watches with that peculiar human mixture of discomfort and fascination, the inability to look away from cruelty in action. What would you think if you witnessed this scene? A quiet woman surrounded by aggressive men twice her size? Customers doing nothing but watching while predators circle their prey? The bystanders tell themselves what bystanders always tell themselves. Someone should help, but not against those odds. She's handling it well enough. Words can't really hurt. It will be over soon. But Marcus grows frustrated by Allie's lack of reaction, his voice rising with each ignored insult. You deaf? Sweetheart? Or just too stupid to understand when men are talking to you? James slams his massive fist on the counter, making sugar dispensers jump. She's ignoring you, Marcus. Little Mouse thinks she's too good to answer real men. And the systematic degradation continues with cruel efficiency. Marcus questions whether she's tough enough for real work, suggests she belongs somewhere more horizontal than vertical, wonders aloud if her brain can process simple orders. His crew echoes each insult with increasingly vulgar additions, their voices creating a wall of harassment designed to break down any defense. That's when Walter Thornton stands up slowly from his corner booth, his movement catching Allie's attention. For just a moment, Their eyes meet across the coffee shop, and something passes between them. Recognition not of faces but of something deeper. The shared knowledge of what it means to survive things that kill other people. The old veterans movement doesn't go unnoticed by the bikers, who interpret it as potential interference. Saul turns toward Walter with the lazy confidence of someone used to intimidating elderly civilians. "Sit down, Grandpa," Saul calls out. "This doesn't concern you." But Walter doesn't sit down. Instead, he takes another step forward, his cane clicking against the linoleum floor with military precision. His voice, when he finally speaks, carries an authority that 30 years of civilian life hasn't erased. "Ma'am," he says quietly, his eyes fixed on Allie's face. "That watch you're wearing under your sleeve, it wouldn't happen to have any special features, would it?" The question seems random to everyone else in the coffee shop, but Allie's reaction is immediate and telling. Her hand moves unconsciously to her wrist where the edge of something metallic catches the light beneath her long sleeves. It's a gesture so automatic she doesn't realize she's doing it, but Walter recognizes it immediately. "Because I remember hearing about some very special timepieces." Walter continues, his voice growing stronger. "Devices that could track location, send encrypted messages, survive underwater operations. The kind of gear they issued to people who needed to stay connected when regular communication wasn't possible." The coffee shop falls silent, except for the hissing of the espresso machine and the distant sound of traffic. Even the bikers sense that something has shifted, though they don't understand what. Allie stares at Walter with an expression that cycles through surprise, caution, and something that might be relief. 60 seconds, she says suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Marcus blinks, thrown off his script by the apparent non-sequitur. "What?" Allie glances at the wall clock with the same mechanical precision she applies to everything else. "You have 60 seconds to walk out of here." The absurdity of this small woman threatening 5 bikers sends the crew into explosive laughter. James doubles over with exaggerated mirth while Saul wipes imaginary tears from his eyes. The twins exchange glances that suggest they've just witnessed the funniest thing they've ever seen. "Did this little mouse just threaten us?" James manages between laughs. But Walter Thornton isn't laughing. He's studying Allie's posture, the way her weight has shifted, the professional assessment in her eyes as she evaluates each target. His own training from 50 years ago recognizes preparation when he sees it. "Boys," Walter says quietly, his voice cutting through their laughter, "I think you might want to listen to the lady." That's when Marcus makes his fatal mistake. Frustrated by the lack of fear, irritated by the old man's interference, and emboldened by his crew's support, he reaches across the counter and grabs Allie's scarred wrist with enough force to leave bruises. The contact triggers something immediate and automatic in Allie's nervous system. Muscle memory older than thought, training deeper than instinct. Her entire body language changes in the space between heartbeats, from defensive service worker to something far more dangerous. And that's when Walter Thornton realizes exactly who he's been sharing coffee with for the past 18 months. "Sweet Jesus," he whispers, his voice filled with awe and recognition. "You're Ghost 23. The name hits the coffee shop like a physical blow. Ghost 23. 2 words that mean nothing to civilians, but everything to anyone who's followed classified military operations. Marcus's grip on Allie's wrist loosens slightly as confusion replaces aggression, but he doesn't let go completely. His crew exchanges uncertain glances. They came here for easy intimidation, not military call signs and old veterans speaking in code. Allie's eyes lock onto Walter's weathered face. And for the first time in 18 months, her carefully constructed mask slips, not completely, but enough to reveal the soldier underneath the service worker. Her voice, when she finally speaks, carries a weight that wasn't there moments before. "That name is classified, Walter. So is a lot of what happened in Syria," Walter replies, his cane clicking as he moves closer. "But some stories deserve telling, especially when people need to understand who they're dealing with." The confusion on Marcus's face deepens. "What the hell is Ghost 23? Some kind of video game reference?" Walter's laugh holds no humor. "Son, Ghost 23 was the call sign for Petty Officer First Class Allison Vance, United States Naval Special Warfare, specialized maritime operations, classified reconnaissance, and the kind of missions that don't make it into history books. The coffee shop falls silent except for the distant hum of traffic and the sound of Margaret Richardson's shocked intake of breath. Even the construction crew has stopped their whispered commentary, sensing that something far beyond their understanding is unfolding. "That's impossible," James rumbles from his position near the door. "Women can't be SEALs. Everyone knows that." Allie finally speaks, her voice steady despite the tremor that has started in her hands. "The program was classified. 12 women specially selected for operations where traditional male operatives couldn't function effectively. We were ghosts because officially we didn't exist." Walter nods grimly. "Syria, 2021. I remember reading about a reconnaissance mission that went sideways. 12-person SEAL team sent to investigate a weapons cache. Intelligence said it was lightly defended. Routine surveillance operation." "It wasn't routine," Allie says, her eyes growing distant. "It was a trap. Someone leaked our position, our timeline, our extraction route. 200 enemy fighters waiting in prepared positions for what they'd been told was a small American unit." The weight of understanding begins to settle over the coffee shop. Marcus's grip has loosened to almost nothing, but he still hasn't released her wrist. His crew stands frozen, their earlier bravado evaporating as they realize they've stumbled into something far larger than a simple intimidation session. "The ambush was perfect," Allie continues, her voice taking on the clinical tone of someone recounting a mission briefing. "First IED took out our communications. Second one collapsed part of the building, separated our team. By the time I realized what was happening, half my unit was already captured." Walter's weathered hands shake as he asks the question he already knows the answer to. "How many came home?" "One." The word hangs in the air like a death sentence. "I lived because I was covered in their blood. Because enemy fighters thought I was just another corpse in a pile of dead Americans. I listened to them celebrate over my teammates' bodies for 6 hours before extraction arrived. The revelation transforms everything. The quiet woman behind the counter isn't a broken veteran seeking civilian refuge. She's a survivor of one of the deadliest ambushes in modern military history. The scars on her wrist aren't symbols of weakness, but proof of unimaginable strength." Marcus finally releases her arm, backing away as if he's been touching something radioactive. "We didn't know, Jesus. We had no idea who you were." "You didn't ask," Allie replies, but her voice holds no anger, only the exhausted sadness of someone who's carried too much weight for too long. "You saw someone different and decided that made them a target. Maybe next time you'll think about what you don't know before you decide to hurt someone." That's when the black sedan pulls into the parking lot. Allie notices it first, her training making her hyper-aware of surveillance patterns and government vehicles. The car circles the block once before parking directly across from the coffee shop, its occupants making no effort to conceal their observation. Through tinted windows, she catches glimpses of suits and earpieces and the kind of patient professionalism that belong to people with badges and clearances. "Walter," she says quietly, never taking her eyes off the sedan. "You need to get everyone out of here now." But Walter has seen the car, too, and his old soldier instincts recognize a developing situation. "How long have they been watching you?" "Probably since the day I arrived in Elmwood. New identity only works if the people who created it don't want you found." Allie's voice remains calm, but her posture has shifted into something that looks like acceptance mixed with defiance. "Question is whether they're here to bring me in or shut me up permanently." The sedan's passenger door opens and a man in a perfectly pressed uniform emerges. Colonel James Sterling moves with the measured confidence of someone accustomed to being the highest-ranking person in any room. His silver hair gleams in the morning sunlight, and the eagles on his shoulders catch the light like a predator's eyes. "Allie," Walter whispers, recognition dawning in his voice. "That's the intelligence officer who briefed my unit about Syrian operations. Sterling, he was supposed to be coordinating with SEAL teams in theater." Allie's entire body goes rigid. He wasn't just coordinating with us, Walter. He was selling us out. $40,000 to Taliban intermediaries for our position, our timeline, our extraction routes. 11 of the finest warriors America ever produced. Dead because James Sterling needed money for his wife's spending habits. The coffee shop has become a pressure cooker. Bikers who came for intimidation now find themselves witnessing the exposure of military betrayal at the highest levels. Sterling approaches the entrance with 3 agents in civilian clothes. Their bearing screaming federal authority, despite the casual attire. "Ma'am," Marcus says. His voice completely changed from the swaggering intimidation of minutes before. "What do you need us to do?" The question surprises everyone, including Allie. These men who had come to terrorize her are now offering protection. Their earlier aggression transformed into something approaching respect. The shift from predator to protector is complete and irreversible. "Nothing," Allie replies, but her hand moves unconsciously to something behind the coffee machine. This was always going to happen eventually. Some ghosts can't stay buried forever. Sterling enters with his team, bringing the smell of expensive cologne and government authority. His smile is practiced politician, all surface warmth hiding steel underneath. When he speaks, his voice carries the kind of false concern that's fooled congressional committees and grieving families. "Petty Officer Vance," he says with manufactured warmth. "Or should I say, Miss Davis, according to your current documentation, we need to discuss your situation." "Hello, James." Allie's voice cuts through his performance like a blade through silk. "Been a while since you sent me to die for money." The accusation hangs in the air like cordite after a firefight. Sterling's agents shift uncomfortably, clearly unaware of the full history between their commander and their target. The coffee shop crowd watches in stunned silence as decades of buried truth begins to surface. "You're clearly suffering from PTSD," Sterling says smoothly, playing to his audience. "Traumatic experiences can create false memories, paranoid delusions. We're here to help you get the treatment you need." But Allie has spent 3 years preparing for this moment, gathering evidence like armor against the day her past caught up with her. She reaches behind the coffee machine and produces something that makes Sterling's composed expression crack for the first time. A small thumb drive that seems to pulse with the weight of justice. "False memories," she repeats, holding the device where everyone can see it. "Like the encrypted communications between you and Taliban intermediaries. Like the bank transfers to accounts under your wife's maiden name. Like the timeline that shows exactly how you sold the position of 12 American warriors for 40,000 pieces of silver." Sterling's mask slips completely now, revealing the desperate calculation of a cornered animal. "You're delusional. No one will believe a traumatized soldier with documented mental health issues." But Margaret Richardson has been recording everything on her phone. Her live stream attracting viewers who understand they're witnessing something extraordinary. The construction crew has surrounded the federal agents with the casual menace of working men who've suddenly found a cause worth fighting for. Even the bikers have positioned themselves strategically, their earlier aggression redirected toward a more deserving target. 11 names. Allie continues, her voice steady despite the pain of speaking them aloud. Michael Rodriguez, who was getting married in 2 weeks. Eleanor Thompson, whose daughter was born while she was deployed. Daniel Chong, who joined after September 11th to defend his adopted country. Jennifer Watson, Michelle Monroe, Patricia Stone, Amanda Davies, Lisa Anderson, Nicole Murphy, Elizabeth King, and Maria Wilson. Each name lands like a hammer blow, transforming abstract betrayal into personal tragedy. These weren't just casualties of war. They were human beings with futures stolen for money. The coffee shop has become a courtroom. Every person presents serving as witness to charges that demand justice. Sterling's team exchanges uncertain glances, their confidence shaken by the specificity of Allie's accusations and the evidence she claims to possess. The techniques came from elite tactical training programs, specialized courses that executive protection agencies and private security firms use to train their highest-tier personnel. The kind of advanced instruction that had taught her not just combat but evidence preservation and counterintelligence operations. The thumb drive contains everything, Allie announces, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed space. Financial records, communication logs, timestamp data that proves how James Sterling systematically betrayed American forces for personal profit. 3 years of investigation. 3 years of gathering proof that some betrayals can't be buried. The arrival of legitimate federal authorities breaks the standoff with dramatic timing. FBI agents alerted by Margaret's viral livestream and the serious nature of the allegations take control of the scene with professional efficiency that makes Sterling's civilian-clothed team look like amateur hour. The thumb drive is entered into evidence as Sterling's protests fall on deaf ears. His carefully constructed life crumbles in real time. Decades of hidden corruption exposed by a woman who was supposed to be dead. The ghost has materialized to deliver justice that military bureaucracy couldn't provide. As Sterling is led away in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence to agents who've already seen enough evidence to know better, Allie finally allows herself to show emotion. Not relief or satisfaction, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who's carried too much weight for too long. Marcus approaches her slowly, his earlier swagger replaced by something approaching reverence. "Ma'am, petty officer, we owe you an apology that goes way beyond words. We had no right to treat anyone that way, but especially not someone who's sacrificed so much." Allie studies his face, seeing genuine remorse, where earlier there had been only cruel amusement. "You didn't know, but you also didn't care to know. That's the difference between strength and bullying. One protects, the other just takes. How do we make this right?" James asks, his massive frame somehow diminished by the weight of understanding. "What can we do to show we understand how wrong we were?" Allie's answer comes without hesitation, pointing toward the cemetery visible through the coffee shop windows. Section 60. Visit it. Read the names on the stones. Understand what real sacrifice looks like. Remember that every person you meet might be carrying wounds you can't see, stories you haven't heard, pain you haven't imagined. The bikers file out quietly, transformed by truth in ways that threats never could have accomplished. Their motorcycles start with subdued rumbles. Engines that had arrived with intimidation now departing with respect. 6 months later, Elmwood Coffee House has become something more than a business. It's a way station for veterans seeking understanding, a place where warriors find community without judgment. Allie still serves coffee with mechanical precision, still positions herself with tactical awareness, still carries the memories of 11 teammates who trusted her to bring them home. But now she also carries the knowledge that survival can have purpose, that ghost stories don't always end with death. When young veterans visit, drawn by word of mouth through networks that understand pain, she offers more than coffee. She provides the presence of someone who knows the weight of survival, who can speak the language of those who've seen too much. The morning routine continues with methodical precision that has anchored Allie's existence for 3 years. She measures coffee grounds with laboratory accuracy, 23 grams per cup, never more, never less. Her movements flow through familiar safety patterns, checking all entrances, positioning herself near multiple exit routes, never allowing her back to face doors or windows. But something fundamental has shifted in her vigilance. Where once she watched only for threats, now her trained eyes scan for different signs. The hollow stare of recent combat veterans, the hypervigilance of someone processing trauma, the careful movements of young soldiers carrying invisible wounds. She recognizes the symptoms because she's lived them, survived them when survival seemed impossible. Through the coffee shop's windows, the national cemetery spreads across the landscape like a marble testament to sacrifice. The morning mist rises from perfectly aligned headstones, each marking a life given in service to something greater. Section 60, where the newest graves hold America's fallen warriors, draws her gaze with gravitational pull. Allison Vance, Ghost 23, survivor, witness, keeper of memories, continues her own watch from this unlikely outpost. The silence surrounding her has evolved from defensive quiet to the contemplative stillness of someone who has found purpose in bearing witness. In that hard-earned silence, healing begins. The coffee shop has transformed into an unofficial sanctuary where warriors gather not for therapy, but for recognition. Here, hypervigilance is understood rather than pathologized. Here, Survivor's guilt is acknowledged as the price of consciousness, not a disorder requiring fixing. Some heroes wear dress uniforms and die in momentary glory. Others serve coffee and live with ghosts daily, teaching that true strength isn't hiding pain, but using it as a bridge to understanding, transforming personal suffering into communal healing. In Elmwood Coffee House, 3 blocks from where heroes sleep eternal rest, the ghost serves coffee with steady hands that remember gripping weapons in hostile territory, but now choose to hold hope instead. Each morning brings new opportunities for healing as the living gradually learn that sometimes those who have faced death carry the most profound lessons about what it truly means to survive. Not just physical battles, but the longer war of finding purpose beyond mere existence.